My name is Ashton. I'm a heroin addict. Thank you, everyone, for inviting me. I love HA. I've gotten to meet so many people in the last 2 days. Like, we came up here on Saturday, and we had a bunch of heroin addicts at our hotel last night, which was super awesome. And then I've met so many today, which is super awesome. And Heroin Anonymous, like, changed my whole life. It changed my whole perspective on recovery. It changed literally, like, everything about Heroin Anonymous is so vivid in my mind. And, like, whenever I started going to other fellowships, like, the first time I went, it's not as vivid in my mind. So it's like HA, like, really touched my heart, and, like, I've been coming ever since I found it at about 4 months sober, and I found it in Portland. So, yeah, I'm a heroin addict. I'm originally from West Virginia, so I'm a hick. Let's see. I come from a good family, like, hard workers. The only struggle I really had growing up was pretty young. I realized I was a lesbian, and, like, that wasn't okay where I was from. So I always, like, had that less than feeling, and it was just, like, I had to mask that for so long. Like, I didn't come out till I was 20 years old, so I, like, knew it, like, I guess you don't know, but, like, you kind of know, like, early on, and then you just keep questioning it, and you keep trying to change it. So, like, the first time I drank, like, I was able to just breathe and be like, I can be whoever I want, you know? So it was like, I started drinking, like, the first time I drank, I blacked out, and I wanted to do it again. I, like, did a bunch of stuff in one night. Like, I drank, I smoked pot, and I took Xanax, and, like, at 14, like, the first time I had ever done anything. And it was awesome. And, like, it was with an older crowd, so I felt so cool, and, like, I felt like I fit in, and it was just like, I can be this person. So, like, I chased that. That first time I did that, that's what I chased all the way up until I got clean this time, that feeling. So, like, that first feeling, it's like I've had a different experience with every drug I've done, but heroin really stuck to me. Like, it grabbed a hold of me, and I couldn't get out of it. Like, it just, like, brought me to my knees. So, like, the minute I started using, I started lying, too. I'm sure no one can relate, but, yeah, I just, like, started lying. It started out with small stuff, and then, like, it just got bigger and bigger and bigger. And I would lie about things, like, I didn't even need to lie about. It just, like, became part of my heroin addiction. And, like, I guess looking back, like, I've always had, like, addict tendencies in my brain. Like, I've always had that. Like, when I read the doctor's opinion in the book, like, it totally made sense to me, the phenomenon of craving and the mental obsession. Like, that totally, like, I was like, yes, that's what happens, you know? And it was just like, okay, I'm not alone in this. Like, a lot of other people struggle with this. So it was, like, kind of freeing. But, like, relapse is a big part of my story. Like, I guess after I started, like, using, like, it didn't, like, I didn't go from, like, alcohol to heroin overnight. It was kind of like a progressive disease, like the book talks about. So it was like I drank, like, every weekend I could, but, like, in my head I was already planning when I was going to get to do it again. So it was like, I don't think normal people do that, you know. It's just like I was already planning when I was going to get to drink again. I started smoking pot all the time when I was in high school. It was just like go to school stoned, and, like, I was a swimmer for, like, 14 years. I was really into that. So, like, before I started using, like, I swam in the morning. I went to school. I swam in the night. It was like I ran. I lifted weights. It was, like, really, like, I was an athlete. So it was, like, that was really important to me. As soon as I started using and drinking, like, stuff started slipping out the window for me. Like, school didn't matter as much. My crowd of friends changed, and it was just, like, everything just started going to shit. But, like, I managed to graduate high school. Let's see. I went to college, and I chose a school because I wanted to party. It was, like, the #1 party school in the country, and it was, like, 2.5 hours away from home, so it was, like, okay. But, like, I found cocaine there. I started using that, and, like, I went to school, but, like, I don't remember literally anything I learned. So, which is, like, a lot of my life. Like, my story is all over the place because I'm a junkie. Like, I've tried to run from myself for so long that it's just, like, I was here, and then I was here, and then I was here. I've been, like, all over the East Coast pretty much, like, in different places, just trying to escape myself. Like, I've never loved myself because I always felt that less than feeling that I talked about. Like, I've always been trying to run from that, and, like, drugs help that a lot. But, like, I remember specifically, like, very vividly the first time I ever shot up. And, like, when I got into shooting up, like, heroin wasn't around in West Virginia. Like, what was around was pain pills and meth. And, like, I didn't like meth. Like, someone gave me meth when I was 17, and they were like, this is cocaine. And I was like, oh, really? And he's like, yeah, you smoke it out of a light bulb. And I was like, okay, so like, so I'll be able to go to sleep like later, right? I was up for 3 days and like had no idea what happened. And like, that's the kind of addict I am. Like, if you're like, try this, I'm like, hell yeah. And like, that's just been my experience. But that was really strange. But first time I shot up was a morphine 100. And like, I don't like to like go into graphic details, but I think it's important to identify why I'm freaking here. And it's because I'm a junkie. And like, I watched some guy, like, I was like, no, I'm not doing that. Like, that's too far. Like, that's my limit. Like, I've done all this other shit, but it's like, that's my limit. Like, I do not want to shoot up. I watched him for like 3 weeks, and like, it was hitting him so much faster than me. And I was like, fucking do it. Like, I'm ready. I'm so ready. And I was like, so stoked. And then I got that feeling where I was just like itchy and warm. And I was like, oh, I have like goosebumps right now. So that's how it felt to me. And like, there was my answer. Like, I had been drinking and smoking pot and all this stuff, but the minute I did that, that was the warm feeling that I wanted so bad. And that first time I did that, like, I chased that. I chased that until I got sober, really. And like, that was the first time, I think I was like 19 or 20, and it was the first time I ever got strung out. Like, for me, like, no one warned me that I was like, if I didn't have this drug, like, I was going to get sick, and I was going to withdraw, and I was going to need it, and it was going to have to feel like I was going to have to do all these things that, like, that came with being a heroin addict. Like, even though I hadn't done heroin yet, I was doing opiates. So it was like, I was like hooked. And like, so I did that for 6 months, and then I always had it, and then I was stealing from my grandparents and like talking them to giving me money all the time because I was living with them. Because I dropped out of school. I forgot to say this. I dropped out of school on this plan that I devised on alcohol and cocaine, that I was madly in love with Amanda Bynes, and I was going to drop out of college to go find her. I don't know if anyone knows who that is, but like, I have loved her since I was like 8 years old, like obsessed. Like, I have that mental obsession with Amanda Bynes like I do heroin. It's not as bad anymore since I've been in like a stable relationship for a while, but like, it was pretty bad. I thought she was like going to meet me and we were going to fall in love. And then she like went crazy. And then I was like, this would be perfect. This would be like awesome. So like, I like paid this lady online $150 to tell me her address because she said she knew it. And so I went out there, and like, she didn't live there. I ended up just getting fucked up for 2 weeks and like ran out of money. And then I like had to tell my parents what happened, and like, I was scared of my dad, so I flew to my aunt's house because my he's like 6'4", and like, he's like serious. He's like, no drugs. And I'm like, okay. But so I didn't want to even face him, and like, he's scary, seriously. But so I went to my aunt's, and then I lived with my grandparents because I had no plan. They lived in a 1 stoplight town in West Virginia, and I worked at this gas station, and like, all there was to do were drugs. Like, I felt like there was nothing exciting really going on, but I loved living there because I could get drugs so easily. Like, I would bounce from trailer park to trailer park and like get as much drugs as I wanted with this guy that I met. And like, I'm gay, but like, I will suck your dick for dope. So pretty much is what happens. And I'm not like, all heroin addicts, especially females, can relate to that. Like, I'm sure men too, but so yeah, so like, I like, whatever I need to do to get drugs, I will do it. So like, where was I? Like, I was strung out in this town, and like, the first time I didn't have it, I got really like, my body started to ache. I felt like I had the flu, but 10 times worse. And like, no one warned me about that stuff. Like, I don't know if I was just like in a delusion. Like, I never heard of anything like that happening. So I was like freaking out. And then I was like, then the guy I was with, he's like, you're withdrawing. We need to get some dope. I was like, oh, this sucks. Like, and then I got more, and then I forgot that even happened. And I was like, we're good now. Like, and then it happened again. And like, I started running out of like options, like money-wise. So like, my parents like knew I was fucked up, and they were like, you have to drive down like every month to go to this therapist. So I like went to this therapist, and she was like, you're strung out. And I'm like, yeah. So I went and saw my parents, and like, I just tell this story because like, it's like the very first time I knew that I had broken my parents' heart. Like, they hadn't seen me in a little while, and I came home, and my mom took one look at me. I had a sleeveless shirt on, and I had track marks up my arm. Like I didn't even care. It was just like I was that sick. And, like, my dad saw me, and, like, he is awesome. My dad is awesome. He's always supported me, but, like, he was, like, outraged. Like, he, like, charged at me and, like, shook me. Like, I still remember it. And he's like, what drugs are you on? Like, freaking out. So it was, like, I don't want to tell you, but, like, it was heartbreaking. And, like, the next, like, 5 years were, like, utter disappointment, and that continued on. Like, I would, like, get their hopes up by getting into the rooms and, like, going to rehab, but, like, I would break it by relapsing and, like, not doing what I was supposed to in here, because, like, I really suffer with that mental obsession, that phenomenon and craving that the book talks about. And, like, without a spiritual solution, I now know this, like, I'm gonna die. Like, that's just the way I use. So, like, I went to my first rehab in Arizona, and that was when I got introduced to 12-step programs. And, like, I heard God. And my family, like, we didn't go to church or anything. They didn't really tell us what to believe. I just heard, like, gay people go to hell, like, around me. So I just assumed that's where I was going. So, like, I didn't want any part of that. So, like, I went to this rehab, and I came out to my parents because this therapist was like, if you don't come out to your parents, like, you're never going to get better. Like, that wasn't the problem. Like, I'm an addict. Like, I needed the spiritual solution. But when he said that, I was like, all right. So I did, and they were really disappointed. But, like, we didn't really talk about it again for a while. Like, years later, we didn't talk about it because they were like, they didn't know what to do. So it was just like, move on and, like, hide it and, like, mask it and not really talk about what's going on, because that's kind of like, it's kind of how things go. Not now. Like, I can talk to my mom and dad about anything, really, and it's, like, with boundaries, of course, but yeah. So anyway, I went to AA. I got introduced to AA. I think I got introduced to, like, everything at once. Like, I don't think I went to HA because, like, I was into opiates, but, like, I hadn't found heroin yet. So anyway, I did that deal. And, like, a lot of my story, like, involves meeting someone in rehab and, like, fucking and then, like, feeling better and then, like, using. So that's, like, what happens. So it's like I would meet someone, I'm better, and then I would, like, go with that person, and then we'd be using, and I'd be like, fuck. But so it's like I went to my rehab, met a significant other. That didn't work out. I'd be heartbroken. I'd go back home. I'd tell my parents I tried, I just can't get this, and then I'd be gone. And I disappeared a lot. And, like, so that was my start of, like, trying to get sober. I didn't want to do it for me. My parents wanted me to do it. So, and maybe a little bit I wanted to, but, like, I didn't want to do what was entailed in here. Like, I didn't want to do this stuff until right now. Like, till, like, my sobriety date's October 2nd, 2016. Like, I still didn't even want to do it then. I just knew I had to do it then, because I was going to die, and, like, I truly felt like that. So fast forward a little bit, like, I moved to Virginia Beach for a little bit, and I met this guy in AA my aunt knew, because my parents threw me to my aunt because, like, my dad caught me. I was on, like, a 3-day meth run, like, walking, like, 6 miles away from our house the opposite way, and he, like, found me on the side of the road and literally threw me in the car and, like, took me to Virginia Beach. So everything's kind of blurry in this section, but so I went to Virginia Beach and I lived with my aunt. But anyway, I met this guy, and he was in AA, and he took me to meetings every week. He took me to the same meeting every week, and he was like, you need to go to a meeting every day. And I was like, okay. So I went every day, and I listened, and I still couldn't get the God idea, but I still went. And I was like, there's something to this. Like, everyone's getting better in here. Like, I saw people, like, relapse all the time, but, like, in my head, like, people were getting better here, like, in all 12-step programs. People were getting better. I was not better. So I was kind of intrigued. So, like, I went, and I got a sponsor, and the problem with the sponsor was I didn't want to tell her anything. I'm sure you guys can relate. It was just weird. Like, I didn't want her knowing everything about me. I got this my first sponsor. She was, like, 50 and a counselor and, like, drank wine. And I was like, she's going to be mortified when I tell her, like, my life. So I didn't really want to tell her. So I didn't really ever get real with her. But we, like, attempted working through them. And, like, I got all the way to a year sober. And I could not believe it. And I, like, was fake. And, like, I got a job. And I, like, became like this productive member of society again, but I was still so miserable. So I was watching all these people's lives get better, like all of you guys' lives get better, and I was just miserable inside, and I was like, what is wrong? Like, I'm trying to do this stuff. I'm not doing it very well, but I'm like trying. And like, I was like, I'm probably not being as honest as I could, but like, I felt like I did it to prove a point. So I like got 1 year sober. Like, my parents came and watched me get this chip. My sponsor was there. Like, literally the next day I met this guy and he had heroin and I did it. And like, that's what happened. Like, I was going to meetings the whole time, but I was never like solidly working a program or working with others or anything they teach you in here. I was just kind of trying to absorb the information and like get it in my brain like I do like with school or something, but not applying it to anything and not being 100% honest about what was going on in my head. Because I also suffer from mental illness. I know that that's an outside issue, but that's a big part of my recovery, so I talk about it. But so I have a lot of stuff going on in my head, like from when I was very young to like even now, you know? It's just like, but I have a solution now that really works for me that I had back then, but I wasn't ready. So like I had to come here like totally broken. So like I'm getting to like the end of like my using because I didn't want to make it like too long. But I got into heroin and like that was cheaper, that was better, like it was just better for me. And like I got strung out. And from that time I got that year, I couldn't put any time together. I was bouncing in and out of detoxes. Like I was stealing, I was pawning things, I owed drug dealers money, like all this stuff like that I like hadn't really done, like the pawn shop schemes and like gift card schemes and like all the stuff that I had never done before, I was definitely doing for heroin. So it was like I loved it so much, and it was the one thing that I couldn't, like, after that year, I, like, couldn't put any time together. It would be, like, 3 months here used. Like, I was trying to work with sponsors, but, like, all I thought about was heroin. It was, like, I don't know how to, like, get out of this. Like, that's all I want to do. So, like, I was, like, I couldn't even, like, my sponsor would, like, get me to step 3, and I'd be out the door, like, already. So it was, like, I never really got that step 1, I guess, because I was just, like, so mentally obsessed, and the phenomenon of craving was so strong, and like I needed it. I was so sick, and it was just like, and I'm such a pussy with dope sickness, like I have to do something because I just feel like shit. But like, so I've like tried all these different rehabs, like I've been in and out, and like they've said the same thing, like go to meetings, get a sponsor, work the steps. Like I've heard that for like 8 years, like 9 years, and like I don't know why it just hit me this time. Like, I should probably get a sponsor, work the steps, and help others. Like, that would be good. So, like, that was, like, my life. Like, it never dawned on me. My disease was so strong that, like, I had to truly suffer. So, fast forward, I'm just going to talk about my last relapse. So, I was living in Florida. Like, this man in AA, like, invited me to live with him in his mansion. My life was so good. I was, like, living in this mansion in Florida. I was working construction, making all this money. It was so awesome. I was, like, meeting all these people. I was, like, had a service commitment and, like, all this stuff. But, like, I was still miserable inside. I was getting all this stuff, and, like, it was temporary happiness. But, like, at night I wasn't able to sleep. I was restless, irritable, and discontent, just like the book says. And, like, I was, like, I'm feeling like I'm going to use, and I don't know why. Like, it was cunning, baffling, powerful, and it's something, heroin addiction is something I just can't explain, which is why I'm, like, having such a hard time, because, like, my brain couldn't, like, I couldn't explain why I kept going back out. Like, people would ask me, like, were you doing this and this and this? And I'd be like, well, I was going to the meetings, and, like, there was stuff I wasn't doing, so, like, but there was stuff I was doing, too, but I was still going back out. So, like, I have to do it all because, like, I will use. So anyway, I ended up relapsing. I met this girl. We were like, you know, like that heroin love when like you're with someone and it's like really fast and you're just like, you get a marriage certificate and you're like, I'm going to get married like this week. I don't know. Maybe you don't. But that happened to me. And this girl was a heroin addict just as bad as I was. And we were like, whenever like she came to visit me, and then I moved to Kentucky, and like, anyway, She was just as bad as me, maybe even worse. Like, she was psycho, and I was psycho. And, like, we had all this money well, to me it was a lot of money because I wasn't very very good, productive member of society. But I had all this money saved up from construction, so I had all this money to blow, and we blew through like 10, 15 grand in like a month and a half, 2 months, because we were like shooting up so much. And then someone, like, I know this is HA, but someone gave me a hit of crack, and that changed my life too. I was like, this is awesome. I was smoking crack and shooting heroin all day, every day. It was the best feeling. Like, I'm serious. Heroin and crack, that's like my kryptonite together. Like, I can't. It destroyed my life so fast. I was like, whoa, like, how did this happen to me? I was like, why did that guy give me that, and why did I accept it? But it just happened like that. It was like the first time I did heroin. So it's like the two together are like my demise. But anyway, so I was doing that. We didn't have any more money. Like, she was prostituting. I was prostituting. We were pawning things. We were stealing. Like, I didn't know this, but like, in Kentucky, you can get like $100 for ladders, like random ladders. Like, they want ladders. So like, I was like taking ladders, walking up the street, like going to the nearest pawn shop, like stealing power tools, like things I could get, TVs, like people I don't even know, like random people. Like, it felt better in my heart to steal from random people because like that's not people I know. So like, I'm never going to have to like see them, but like, I still, like, my sponsor has a way I make them still, so it's just like, okay. But anyway, so I was making a lot of money on the ladder gig with this girl. But anyways, it just got so bad so fast. And, like, we had an apartment. We lost that apartment. Cops were coming because we were, like, trying to secretly stay in that apartment. Cops were knocking on the door. And I've never been arrested like that. Like, I do not know how. Like, no idea. Grace of God. Because, like, the things I've been doing, like, I'm not secret about being a heroin addict when I'm out there. Like, everyone knows I'm twacked out all the time. And, like, people that know me, like, always, like, they know, like, when I'm on drugs. So it's, like, I don't know how that happened. But, like, I was getting really fucking close at the end. And so, like, they were knocking on my door. I was, like, had a crack pipe upstairs, like, trying to be quiet, like, tweaked out, like, oh, my God, oh, my God, oh, my God. So anyway, like, I don't know how this happened, but a moment of clarity that the book talks about came to me. And it was like I was in this hotel room. I was with 2 other crackheads and then my heroin addict crackhead girlfriend. Fun. And then 2 drug dealers, one that was using my car. And like they were about to like pimp us out on a website. And I was just like disgusted with myself. I couldn't believe like how far I had gone down the scale so fast. And I was 25 years old. I hadn't done anything that I like ever thought I was going to do. Like I hadn't accomplished anything that like in my head comparing myself to other people, I hadn't accomplished anything that other people my age had accomplished. And I just had this moment of clarity, and I was like, I am disgusting. I am a piece of shit. I am worthless. Like, if I keep on, like, I'm going to die. If I don't die from heroin addiction, I'm going to kill myself because of all the worthless things and how I felt about myself. Like, that was how I felt. And, like, I'm going to read this little part in this book, the big book. And I like this paragraph, these 2 paragraphs. In the preceding chapters, you have learn something about alcoholism. We hope we have made clear the distinction between, I guess, the heroin addict and the non-heroin addict. If when you honestly want to, you find you cannot quit entirely, or when using you have little control over the amount you take, you are probably a heroin addict. If that be the case, you may be suffering from an illness which only a spiritual experience will conquer. To one who feels he is atheist or agnostic, such an experience seems impossible, but to continue as he is means disaster, especially if he is a heroin addict of the hopeless variety. To be doomed to a heroin addict death or to live on a spiritual basis are not always easy alternatives to face. And, like, I read that paragraph because that was, like, the beginning of my sobriety. Like, I called this guy that I had met in AA. I had his number. He came and got me and my girlfriend out of this shitty motel. I said, I want to change right now. I do not want to do this anymore. I didn't even think about being dope sick. I didn't think about anything. Like, I knew I was going to be sick, and I didn't care. I was like, I want to get better. I can't live like this anymore. And I had never had a bottom like that. I never thought I was going to, all my bottoms sucked. I never thought I was going to have one where it stuck in my head and in my heart that I truly wanted to be done. And that is truly the gift of God that feeling came. And so anyway, like the next day I called my parents and they got me into treatment one more time. My scary dad's like, swear to fucking God, like this is the last time, like, and all I'm wanting is I need cigarettes, just being such an ungrateful little whatever. But they got me into treatment, and it was in Georgia, and I stayed there for 40 days. And this was like my 7th treatment center, maybe 8th. And so I went there, and my dad really wasn't that mean, but he was so quiet. And then we got there, and he was like, this is the last time. So it was like, okay. So I felt that, and I was like, I really hope, in my head, I was like, if this isn't the last time, I don't know what is, because I felt that's the worst I had ever felt. So anyway, I went to this place. It was dual diagnosis, so it dealt with my mental health and it dealt with my addiction, which go hand in hand for me. They gave me solutions to both. The addiction is the 12 steps and everything I had already learned, and then the mental illness side was seeing a psychiatrist and getting on what I needed to get on. So those went hand in hand. Then they found a place out here for me, well, not here, I guess, in Portland, Oregon. And I was like, I have never been that far away. I'm an East Coast person. I haven't been to any, I've been to cities, but they weren't very big. And, I like being from the country a lot. I live in a city, but, you can just, drive, a little ways and you're in the country, and it's, a really good feeling. But anyway, so, I moved to Portland, Oregon, and I stayed in this place that was a transitional living. So it was they helped you, they got you going, you went to meetings and you got a sponsor and they encouraged you to work the steps. They had groups. They got you you could go to school, you could work, you could volunteer. And I went back to school and I got a little part-time job too. So but I'm telling you, even though I felt so hopeless in that moment, as soon as I got sober and feeling the physical allergy was gone, the physical side of this, the mental part started again. And I was fiending for 3 months. I really wanted crack. The heroin, I did not want to be dope sick anymore, but I missed that up feeling I had when I was smoking crack. And that's all I could think about. And I didn't know that you're supposed to tell someone that. I've been in recovery on and off for a long time, but no one told me you should probably tell someone that you're feeling that way. I was like, oh, okay. So I told the therapist that I was working with there. She knew. She was like, you want to use, don't you? I'm really bad. And so I started talking to her, and that was a breakthrough point for me. So anyway, I went to this meeting, and I hadn't found HA yet. I went to this meeting, and this lady stood up, and they were like, you got to get a sponsor, Ashton. And I was so scared. I had done it before, but I was terrified this time, because I knew that I was going to be real with this person, or I was going to die, and I was terrified to be real with someone about everything. So I heard this lady share, and she was like, my sponsor had me call her every single day for 30 days, and if she missed a day, then I had to start all over. I worked all the steps. I sponsor women, and she was talking about her career, and I was like, damn, that sounds awesome. I want that. So, I took this pregnant girl up with me to ask her because I was terrified. I was like, please go with me. I want to ask that girl. So I asked her, and, that was the start of it. She's like, call me every day for 30 days. Shit, I forgot she even talked about that, and now I have to do this. Whoops. So anyways, I was so into it. I was like, I'm going to do this. This lady, in my head, I'm already, making notions about her, what I think how she is. And I'm like, she's going to think I'm going to fuck up, but I'm not. And, I started calling her every day for 30 days. And then on day 24, I missed a day. And I remembered it at 2 a.m. and I was like, fuck. And then I started texting her. I was like, don't make me start all over. I know it's past midnight, but please, I forgot. And she was like, you have to start all over. And I almost fired her because my ego just couldn't take it. I was like, God damn it. I was bitching in the treatment center. I was like, can you believe this? And my therapist was like, yeah, just start over. It's not a big deal. Because I'm a perfectionist. I want to do everything right the first time. I still struggle with this to this day. I want to do everything right the first time. So anyway, I started working the steps. I worked them in I actually worked them in Narcotics Anonymous first. And what I love about HA is I can talk about any of this stuff and it doesn't matter because you guys aren't going to say oh my God, another fellowship. That's why I love HA so much, because it's you can say whatever you want here, and you can talk about being a junkie, and you can talk about the real stuff, and that's why I like it here. So anyway, I worked those steps, and it took me forever because they were so long. So I got them done in about 18 months. I did a 4th and 5th step. I did an inventory. It was just like the big book, the inventory. And then I had to write like my whole life story out, and I had never done that before. And like we did it in the woods, and like it was so freeing. And now I'm talking about the solution. So this is like how I like stay sober today, because like if I don't do this stuff, like I will not be sober. Like my track record proves I don't know which of this stuff works at one time. So I have to try to continue to do as much of it as I possibly can, because I've done bits and pieces of it, but I haven't done the whole thing. And I still make mistakes all the time, like seriously. But anyway, so I started working the steps, and like it was awesome. Like it was terrifying right before each step, but each step I like grew closer and closer to like who I wanted to become. And like I was able to go back to school. Like I started at community college, and then I started going to Portland State, and my major is audiology, which is like hearing sciences. So I want to deal with like hearing impaired individuals, and like hearing aids and cochlear implants and like hearing tests. Like that's what I want to do. So, like, I'm applying to grad schools right now, and, like, I'm a junkie. Like, I didn't think I would ever go back to college after that Amanda Bynes fiasco. And, like, and I did. And that was because I started to gain confidence, because, like, I didn't have any of that. I didn't have any self-love or self-worth. And, like, I didn't believe in God whatsoever. So, like, that's kind of why I did the NA steps, because I didn't feel like it was, like, that big a deal there. Like, and it doesn't matter if you believe in God or not. You can believe in whatever you want. But, like, for me, I was terrified of the big book, because I had heard about it for, like, 7 years. So, like, it says God a lot. So I was like, I do not want any part of that anymore. So I did these steps, and I got to know myself really well. I prayed a little bit, but, like, I don't remember my sponsor telling me, like, I mean, maybe she did, but, like, we were just so busy into the action steps that, like, that's what I did. And then I got done, and she was like, you can start sponsoring people. And then I sponsored a couple of people, and they went back out. And then I started working and going to school a lot, and like meetings started to slip at the wayside. I wasn't working with any newcomers. I was just like work, school, sleep, try to fit in my significant other. It was just like I was getting miserable by the second, like more and more miserable. And like I was getting sick really fast because I wasn't going to my meetings. I wasn't talking to my sponsor, because she was like, after we finished the steps, she was like, you can either get a new one or you can work with me, take a break, and then we'll do the AA steps. And I was like, okay. Well, then I was like really like struggling, and like today, like this was a God thing. Now that I talk to God on a regular basis, this was a God thing. Like I felt really miserable, and like someone in my life that was working with me at that treatment center like didn't work there anymore, and I felt obligated to call her, and it was my old therapist. And I called her, and I was like, please help me. I'm getting so sick, and I'm terrified of using. And it was another like emotional bottom. I was like, I'm terrified I'm going to use. And she's like, I would love to work the steps with you. So I started on this journey now with the AA steps, and it's been awesome. Like we're on, what are we on? We're on step 8. Like she had me memorize the 3rd and 7th step prayers. And like, if you're new, you probably are like, whatever, but this is how it works. And like, so like I started doing the steps out of AA, and like we're on 8 and 9, and she meets me every week, and she has me pray all the time. And it like, I feel like there was a spiritual hole in me, and it's being filled when I'm doing all of this stuff that I've learned in the big book. Like this literature, like I'm really close with someone that says the magic is in the black ink. And like, I truly believe that now. And like, I don't know why I was so scared. Like I had this conception of God that was from my past. Like I still believed when I got sober that God hated me because I was a lesbian. Like, what the fuck? I'm a heroin addict too. Like, and like he doesn't hate me for that, so like why does it matter? So I had to take all that and get rid of that. So if you're struggling with the higher power, I totally get it. Like I had to take all that stuff, and that held me back for like 8 years of trying to get sober in the program, was my old conceptions of God that I would not let go. So those kept me so sick, because I wanted to be self-sufficient, and like it says, like, lack of power, that was our dilemma. Like, no human can relieve me of this problem. It must come from a higher power. That's what it says in the book. And so I truly believe that. And I talk to God way more. I meditate. Like, so, like, I had, like, a fiasco coming here. Like, I think I struggle in Seattle, like, with addresses. Like, I'm from a small town. So if you don't put northwest, there's no northwest, no northeast, like, you have to put on the street sign, or you end up in like totally different places. So like we ended up one place, and then I thought this meeting was at the other place that the HA meetings are. So I thought I don't have social media. I got rid of it when I got sober, and I just haven't had it since. And I don't know why, but I just don't. So anyway, like, I thought I spoke at 2 p.m. and we were going to get here at 1:58. I was like, what the fuck? I'm not going to get to pray or meditate, making it all about me. I was like, ugh. So I was like, okay, in my car and with everyone in it, I was like, okay, I'm going to meditate. So like all my meditation is like cheating country songs from the 80s talking about cheating on your significant other, or like praising Jesus songs, like back and forth. And I felt great. I was like, I'm so connected. Like I said my prayers, like I'm good to go. So anyway, like recovery's been awesome to me. I also, when I was about 7 months sober, I met a girl in treatment. Don't recommend it. Never do. But I did. And we've been together ever since, and it's been like a year and a half. And like, I'm not saying that's going to happen for everyone. I don't say like, go to treatment and fuck someone and hope it works out. I am not telling you to do that. Like, I've just been really blessed that it has worked out, and she's so supportive. And like, I think I was always looking for that too, you know, but I had to fix myself first. And I was in that process, and I was like pretty far in the steps when I met her. She was like a newcomer, but she had like 3 months, but like whatever. But this is just my experience, like, don't do any of this, like, but anyway, it's been really good, and, like, I was in clean and sober housing for 20 months of my recovery, and then, we moved in together, and, like, we fight all the time, and, like, but we always, like, figure it out, and, like, I think God is in our relationship because God is with me, and I talk to God so much, and, like, I'm just telling you this because, like, recovery has given me things in my life that make me happy, like my significant other, like relationships that I have met in HA. Like all my friends are in HA or AA or NA, like most of my friends. And then I have school friends. I'm applying to grad school. So like things come together when you get your shit together, and it feels really good. And like when God's in that with me, like if you're new, I know it's so hard to grasp that concept. Like all you really need to do when you're new, I think, is get a sponsor and come to meetings and like start the work. Like, if you don't hear anything I say, just try that. And keep coming back. Like, that's what they tell you. And, like, the magic happens along the way, and you don't know when the magic really is going to happen. You just keep doing it, and magic does happen. And, like, both times I've worked the steps, magic is happening in my life. And, like, now I'm, like, closer to God than I ever wanted to be. Like, that was not something I strived for. I wanted to be self-sufficient, but when I found out, I started reading this book, and I started reading how important God is in my life, it was like, I got to do this stuff. And I started memorizing the prayers, and I started saying them in the morning. And, like, someone I know really well in meetings says, like, the way he gets well, like when he was dope sick, the way he gets well today is prayer and meditation. Like, that's what he says. And I believe that. Like, when I'm, like, not doing that, like, my day doesn't go this smoothly. And, like, I, like, freak out over really small things. But, like, it's been really good. So, like, I love Heroin Anonymous. My home group is Stairway to Freedom at 7 o'clock on Thursdays on 52nd and Flavel. If anyone's ever in town, I would love to see you there. Thank you so much for having me speak. Thank you. Everyone who's new in here that maybe was afraid to stand up because I was, welcome. I'm so glad you're here. And I'm really excited to hear the other speakers, so I'm going to shut up. Thanks.